Jake Harrison sat in the dark control room deep inside Cheyenne Mountain and watched the screens that showed empty space around Earth. He had been doing this job for 3 years now, and nothing interesting ever happened. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he kept sipping it anyway because it gave him something to do while he monitored the deep space communication arrays. The clock on the wall showed 2:47 a.m. when everything changed forever. A bright flash appeared on his main screen and Jake nearly dropped his coffee cup. He leaned forward and squinted at the display, thinking maybe his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. But the flash came again, and this time it was bigger and brighter. Jake pressed the emergency alert button with his thumb, and red lights started flashing all around the control room. Within seconds, his supervisor came running down the hallway along with 2 other technicians who looked just as confused as Jake felt. "What do you have, Harrison?" his supervisor asked while looking over Jake's shoulder at the screen. "Unknown contact, sir," Jake said and pointed at the display. "Multiple contacts, actually. They just appeared out of nowhere at the edge of our solar system." The supervisor grabbed a phone and started making calls while Jake worked the controls to get a better view of whatever had just shown up in their neighborhood. The image on the screen slowly became clearer, and what Jake saw made his mouth fall open. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were enormous and shaped like nothing Jake had ever seen before. They looked like giant insects made of metal with long curved sections that glowed with purple light. The ships hung in space in perfect formation, like they were waiting for something. Dr. Lisa Martinez got the call at her home in Colorado Springs, and she was dressed and driving to the mountain within 20 minutes. As Earth's top expert on the possibility of alien life, she had always known this day might come, but she never really believed it would happen during her lifetime. Her hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel and drove through the empty streets toward the military base. When Lisa arrived at the control room, she found Jake still sitting at his station, but now he was surrounded by military officers and scientists all talking at once and pointing at his screens. The alien ships had moved closer to Earth and were now positioned just beyond the moon's orbit. Dr. Martinez, General Patricia Wells, said when she saw Lisa enter the room, "We need you to look at something." General Wells was a tall woman with gray hair who had spent 30 years in the Air Force before taking command of Earth's space defense systems. She led Lisa to another workstation where a young communications officer named Bobby Clark was trying to decode signals coming from the alien fleet. "They're transmitting something," Bobby said without looking up from his equipment. "It's not like any language I've ever heard, but there's definitely a pattern to it." Lisa put on a headset and listened to the strange sounds coming through the speakers. The alien voices were deep and clicking like insects talking to each other. But underneath the weird noises, she could hear something that sounded almost like mathematics. "Give me 12 hours, Lisa told the general. "I think I can figure out what they're trying to say." While Lisa worked on decoding the alien message, General Wells gathered her staff in the main briefing room to figure out what Earth should do about these unexpected visitors. The room was full of colonels and majors who all looked worried and kept checking their watches as if time was running out for something important. "What do we know about their weapons?" General Wells asked her intelligence officer. "Nothing good, ma'am," Colonel Jerry Walsh replied while flipping through a folder full of photographs. "Our satellites show energy signatures we've never seen before. Whatever they're carrying makes our nuclear weapons look like firecrackers." Far across the galaxy in a space station the size of a small moon, the Galactic Council was having an emergency meeting. Representatives from dozens of different alien species sat around a circular table that floated in the center of a vast chamber. Most of them looked upset or scared. Ambassador Veltar from the Altarian Republic stood up to address the assembly. He was tall and thin with blue skin and large black eyes that seemed to hold great sadness. His people had been peaceful traders for thousands of years until the Zephyrian Empire found their world 2 years ago. "Honored council members," Veltar said in a voice that carried across the chamber without amplification, "the Zephyrian Empire has reached the human homeworld called Earth. We all know what this means." A murmur of concern went around the table as other representatives nodded their heads grimly. The Zephyrians had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, and their pattern never changed. They would arrive at a planet with overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and destroy any species that refused to submit. Have the humans been warned about what they face? asked Ambassador Chen Dar from the Crystalline Consortium. No, Veltar replied. Earth is too far from established trade routes. They have no idea what the Zephyrian Empire is capable of doing to those who resist. Back on Earth, Dr. Martinez finally broke through the alien code, just as the sun was rising over the Rocky Mountains. She ran to the command center where General Wells was drinking her 5th cup of coffee and studying tactical displays that showed Earth's defensive capabilities compared to the massive alien fleet. General, Lisa called out breathlessly. I've decoded their message. The entire room went quiet as Lisa connected her computer to the main display screen. Text appeared in English translation as the alien voices continued to broadcast their message on repeat. People of the 3rd planet, the message began. You will submit to the authority of the Zephyrian Empire within 72 of your planetary rotations. Resistance will result in the complete elimination of your species and the sterilization of your world. This is your only warning. General Wells stared at the message for a long moment, then looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Some of the younger officers looked terrified, but the veterans just looked angry. She picked up the red phone that connected directly to the president and the military command structure. Mr. President, she said when the call connected, we have a situation that requires your immediate attention. While Earth's leaders tried to figure out how to respond to an ultimatum from an alien empire they knew nothing about, Jake Harrison remained at his monitoring station watching the enemy fleet. The ships had arranged themselves in attack formation, and more vessels kept arriving through what looked like tears in space itself. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and Earth had never faced anything like this before. Every person on the planet was about to learn that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors were not friendly. The greatest test in human history was about to begin, and nobody knew if the human race would survive it. The 72 hours passed faster than anyone on Earth wanted them to. When the deadline expired, the Zephyrian fleet moved toward Earth like a swarm of deadly metal insects. Captain Ryan Brooks watched from his command post in Manhattan as the first wave of alien ships entered the atmosphere with a sound like thunder that never stopped. The enemy vessels were even more terrifying, up close than they had looked on the satellite images. Each ship was the size of a city block and covered in weapons that glowed with purple energy. They moved through the air without making any effort to slow down or avoid the buildings below them. Ryan had commanded an armored division for 8 years, but he had never seen anything that scared him as much as watching those alien ships position themselves over New York City. His tanks and artillery pieces looked like toys compared to the massive war machines floating above his head. All units prepare for defensive positions. Ryan spoke into his radio as the first alien ship opened fire on the Empire State Building. The purple energy beam cut through the famous skyscraper like a hot knife through butter, and the entire structure collapsed in seconds. Dr. Lisa Martinez was in a bunker 300 feet beneath the Pentagon when the bombardment of major cities began. The walls shook every few minutes as explosions echoed down from the surface and emergency lights flickered on and off. She worked frantically at her computer terminal, trying to analyze pieces of Zephyrian technology that military teams had recovered from crash sites. Doctor, we need answers, General Wells said as she entered the underground laboratory. Our conventional weapons are not even scratching their ships. Lisa looked up from her microscope where she had been examining a fragment of alien metal. Their shields operate on a frequency-based energy system, she explained. If we can find the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt them, but I need more time to figure out how. Above ground in New York City, Ryan watched his tanks fire round after round at the alien ground forces that had begun landing in Central Park. The Zephyrian soldiers were 8 feet tall and looked like giant insects wearing advanced armor suits. Their weapons fired beams of red energy that melted through tank armor like it was made of paper. Fall back to secondary positions, Ryan ordered his troops as another squad of his men disappeared in a flash of red light. The aliens moved with mechanical precision and seemed to feel no fear or hesitation as they advanced through the city streets. Far across the galaxy, Ambassador Veltar stood before the Galactic Council again as they watched live feeds of the Earth invasion. The other council members sat in uncomfortable silence as images of burning human cities appeared on the main viewing screen. This is exactly what happened to my homeworld, Veltar said quietly. The Zephyrians always use the same tactics. Overwhelming force followed by systematic destruction of all resistance. Ambassador Chendar from the Crystalline Consortium shifted nervously in her seat. "How long did your people hold out against them?" she asked. 6 days, Veltar replied. But humans seem to be doing something different. Look at their battle reports. The council members studied tactical displays showing human military actions across Earth. Unlike other species that either surrendered quickly or fought conventional battles, the humans were already adapting their strategies. Some units were retreating into cities to fight from buildings. Others were abandoning their heavy equipment and splitting into smaller groups. "They are not following standard military doctrine," observed Ambassador Kretak from the Hive Collective. "This appears to be some form of irregular warfare." Meanwhile, in the rural areas outside major cities, former Marine Sergeant Kate Sullivan was teaching a group of farmers and shop owners how to make explosive devices from household chemicals. Kate had served 3 tours overseas before retiring to run a small hardware store in Montana, but when the aliens invaded, she immediately started organizing civilian resistance groups. "Remember, these devices are designed to disable their vehicles, not kill their soldiers," Kate explained to the 20 people gathered in her barn. "We hit them fast, then disappear before they can call for backup." One of the farmers, an older man named Pete Johnson, raised his hand. "What if they start hunting us down individually?" he asked. Kate smiled grimly. "Then we make them work for every mile of ground they take. This is our home and we know it better than they do." Back in the Pentagon bunker, Dr. Martinez made her first breakthrough while examining a damaged Zephyrian weapon. The energy systems used by the aliens all operated on similar principles, but she noticed something interesting about how their shields recharged after taking damage. "General Wells," Lisa called excitedly, "I think I found something important. Their shields have a brief vulnerability window when they cycle power. If we time our attacks correctly, we might be able to get through." General Wells studied the data on Lisa's computer screen. "How brief is this window?" she asked. "Less than 2 seconds," Lisa replied. "But it happens every time they recharge. We would need perfect timing and coordination to exploit it." In New York City, Captain Ryan Brooks discovered something else about the alien invaders when one of his soldiers managed to wound a Zephyrian warrior. Instead of helping their injured comrade, the other aliens simply stepped over him and continued their advance. "They do not care about individual casualties," Ryan reported to his commanders. "These soldiers act more like machines than living beings." This observation was being noted by resistance fighters all over the planet as they studied alien behavior patterns. The Zephyrians fought with brutal efficiency, but they also showed no creativity or ability to adapt when humans used unexpected tactics. Kate Sullivan's resistance cell scored their first major success when they ambushed a column of alien vehicles moving supplies between their landing sites. Using homemade explosives and hunting rifles, her group disabled 3 enemy transports before vanishing into the forest. "They did not even try to pursue us," Kate reported to other resistance leaders over encrypted radio. "They just called for air support to destroy the entire area where we attacked from." Dr. Martinez worked around the clock to develop a prototype weapon that could exploit the shield vulnerability she had discovered. Using components from damaged alien equipment and human electronics, she built a device that could emit the exact frequency needed to disrupt Zephyrian defenses. 3 weeks after the invasion began, the first field test of Lisa's weapon took place during Ryan's defense of the Lincoln Memorial. As a group of alien soldiers advanced on his position, Ryan's men fired the experimental device at exactly the moment their shields recharged. For the first time since the invasion started, human weapons actually damaged Zephyrian armor. The aliens fell back in confusion as Ryan's soldiers pressed their advantage with conventional firearms during the brief moments when the enemy shields were down. The success was broadcast to resistance groups worldwide, and for the first time, humans began to believe they might actually have a chance to fight back against their invaders. The news of Captain Ryan Brooks' success at the Lincoln Memorial spread through the human resistance networks faster than anyone expected. Within hours, resistance cells across the globe were requesting copies of Dr. Lisa Martinez's shield-disrupting device. Lisa worked with her team to mass-produce the weapons using captured alien components and whatever human technology they could find. General Patricia Wells coordinated the distribution of the new weapons while planning a massive counteroffensive. For the first time since the invasion began, Human forces had something that could actually hurt the aliens, but Wells knew that better weapons alone would not be enough to win this war. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected source in the most unlikely place. Professor Alan Cooper had been teaching philosophy at a small college in Ohio when the aliens invaded. At 62 years old, he should have been hiding in a bunker somewhere safe. Instead, he was crawling through the ruins of Columbus with a resistance group led by a former police officer named Danny Wright. Alan carried a modified radio transmitter instead of a weapon. While the other resistance fighters focused on destroying alien equipment, Alan was trying something completely different. He was attempting to communicate with the enemy soldiers themselves. "Professor, are you sure this is going to work?" Danny asked as they moved through the rubble of what used to be a shopping mall. Alan adjusted the frequency on his radio and spoke quietly into the microphone. "Every intelligent being has the capacity for doubt," he said. "We just need to plant the right questions." The opportunity came when their group encountered a wounded Zephyrian soldier who had been left behind by his unit. Instead of killing the alien, Alan convinced Danny to help him carry the creature to a safe location where he could attempt communication. The Zephyrian warrior was massive even while lying injured on the ground. His insect-like face showed no emotion as Alan knelt beside him with a translation device that Lisa's team had developed from captured alien technology. "Why do you fight for your empire?" Alan asked through the translator. The alien's response came back in broken English. "We serve, we obey. Questions are forbidden." Alan smiled gently and continued talking to the wounded soldier for several hours. He explained human concepts like freedom of choice, individual worth, and the right to question authority. The alien listened but said nothing more until Alan was about to leave. "What happens to those who ask questions?" the Zephyrian whispered. "They become free," Alan replied. Word of Alan's experiment reached Dr. Martinez in her Pentagon bunker, and she immediately saw the potential. If one alien soldier could be made to question orders, then perhaps others could as well. She modified the communication equipment to broadcast on the frequencies used by Zephyrian military units. Within days, Alan's philosophical discussions were being transmitted directly to alien forces across the planet. He spoke about the value of individual life, the importance of making choices, and the courage required to stand up for what was right. The broadcasts were simple and peaceful, but they carried ideas that the Zephyrian Empire had tried to suppress for centuries. Captain Ryan Brooks noticed the first signs of change during a battle in Central Park. His soldiers were attacking a group of Zephyrian warriors when several of the aliens suddenly stopped fighting and stood motionless in the middle of the combat zone. Their fellow soldiers continued the battle around them as if the hesitating warriors did not exist. "Did you see that?" Ryan asked his sergeant after the battle ended. "Some of them just quit fighting, sir," the sergeant replied, like they forgot what they were supposed to be doing. Similar reports began coming in from resistance groups around the world. Alien soldiers were hesitating during attacks, refusing direct orders, and in some cases simply walking away from their units. The rigid discipline that made the Zephyrian military so effective was beginning to crack. Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched these developments with amazement. Ambassador Veltar stood before the assembly again, but this time his expression showed hope instead of despair. "Honored council members," he said, "the humans are doing something we never thought possible. They are turning the Zephyrians against themselves." The viewing screen showed intercepted communications from the Zephyrian fleet around Earth. Military commanders were reporting increasing incidents of insubordination, desertion, and what they called philosophical contamination among their troops. Ambassador Chendar leaned forward in her seat. "How are they accomplishing this?" she asked. "They are using ideas as weapons," Veltar explained. "The humans discovered that many Zephyrian soldiers are not willing participants in their empire's conquests. They are conscripts from conquered worlds who were forced to serve or die. The revelation that the Zephyrian Empire relied heavily on enslaved soldiers from other species changed everything for the Galactic Council. Several member species began secretly providing intelligence about Zephyrian military operations and the locations of conscripted units. On Earth, General Wells received this intelligence through encrypted transmissions and immediately began planning targeted operations. Instead of trying to destroy every alien unit, Human forces would focus on liberating the conscripted soldiers and encouraging defections. Kate Sullivan's resistance group was among the first to encounter defecting Zephyrian soldiers. 3 alien warriors approached her camp in the Montana wilderness carrying white flags made from torn pieces of their own uniforms. "We no longer serve the Empire," their leader said through a translation device. "We wish to help free our homeworlds." Kate studied the aliens carefully. They had removed all insignia from their armor and looked genuinely afraid. "What can you tell us about your military operations?" she asked. The defecting soldiers provided detailed information about Zephyrian supply routes, command structures, and planned operations. More importantly, they revealed which units contained the most conscripted soldiers and how to contact them with Professor Allen's philosophical broadcasts. Dr. Martinez made another crucial discovery while examining technology provided by the defectors. The Zephyrian Empire's communication network was connected across their entire territory, spanning hundreds of star systems. If Allen's broadcasts could be transmitted through their own network, the message of freedom and resistance could reach every Zephyrian-controlled world simultaneously. "We could start a galaxy-wide revolution," Lisa explained to General Wells. "Every species enslaved by the Empire would hear our message at the same time." General Wells looked at the technical specifications on Lisa's computer screen. "What do you need to make this happen?" she asked. "Access to their primary communication hub," Lisa replied. "There's one in the main command ship that's been sitting over Washington, D.C. since the invasion started. Captain Ryan Brooks volunteered to lead the assault on the command ship. His unit had become experts at using the shield-disrupting weapons, and they had gained experience fighting alongside defected alien soldiers. The mission would be dangerous, but success could change the course of the entire war." As human and alien resistance fighters prepared for the most important battle of the conflict, Professor Allen continued his broadcast from a hidden transmitter in the Ohio countryside. His simple message of freedom and choice was spreading through the Zephyrian Empire like a virus, infecting soldiers and civilians alike with dangerous ideas about liberty and self-determination. Professor Alan Cooper's philosophical broadcasts had been running for 2 weeks when the first reports of large-scale Zephyrian defections began reaching Human Resistance Command. Entire companies of alien soldiers were laying down their weapons and refusing to fight. Some units turned their guns on their own officers when ordered to continue attacking human civilians. The revolution was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Dr. Lisa Martinez monitored intercepted alien communications from her bunker beneath the Pentagon and watched in amazement as Zephyrian military discipline collapsed across the globe. Officers were executing deserters, but this only made more soldiers question their loyalty to the Empire. "General Wells, you need to see this," Lisa called as she decoded another transmission from the alien fleet. 3 more Zephyrian battalions have declared independence from Imperial Command. They're requesting sanctuary with human forces. General Wells studied the intelligence reports scattered across her desk. The alien empire that had seemed invincible just weeks ago was falling apart from within, but she knew this was also the most dangerous phase of the conflict. Desperate enemies often fought harder than confident ones. Captain Ryan Brooks prepared his assault team for the mission against the main Zephyrian command ship. Hovering over Washington, D.C., his unit now included human soldiers, defected aliens, and civilian volunteers who had learned to use captured enemy equipment. The mixed composition of his force would have been unthinkable when the invasion started. "Remember our objective," Ryan addressed his troops in the ruins of the National Museum. "We need to reach their communication center and give Dr. Martinez access to their galaxy-wide network. This is not about destroying the ship. This is about sending a message to every enslaved world in their empire." Among Ryan's volunteers was Danny Wright, the former police officer who had worked with Professor Cooper in Ohio. Danny carried one of the new shield-disrupting weapons and had become an expert at coordinating attacks with defected Zephyrian soldiers. "The aliens know their own technology better than we do," Danny explained to the human soldiers. "Listen to what they tell you and follow their lead when we get inside that ship." The defected Zephyrian warriors wore white cloth armbands to distinguish them from Imperial forces. Their leader was a soldier named Kethvar, who'd been conscripted from a farming world called Altheus Prime 3 years earlier. He spoke broken English, but his hatred for the Empire was clear in every word. My people still slaves, Kethvar told Ryan before the mission began. Empire took everything. Made us soldiers or killed us. Professor Cooper's words gave us hope again. Meanwhile, Kate Sullivan's resistance group in Montana had grown into a small army of humans and aliens working together. They controlled a territory covering 3 states and operated refugee camps for defectors from the Imperial forces. Kate had been promoted to general by the Combined Resistance Council and now coordinated operations across the western United States. The most important discovery came when defected aliens revealed the location of prison camps where captured humans were being held. These facilities also contained Zephyrian soldiers who had been imprisoned for questioning orders or showing mercy to civilians. Kate organized simultaneous rescue operations at 12 different camps. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore, Kate told her commanders during a planning meeting. We're fighting for every world the Empire has enslaved. Every person we free makes us stronger. The rescue missions were overwhelming successes. Human prisoners emerged from the camps weak but alive, while imprisoned alien soldiers joined the resistance immediately after their liberation. These mixed units proved incredibly effective because they combined human creativity with detailed knowledge of Imperial tactics and technology. Dr. Martinez completed her modifications to the communication equipment, while Ryan's assault team moved through the ruins of downtown Washington toward the command ship. She had created a device that could override Zephyrian security protocols and broadcast directly through their entire network to every corner of their empire. Professor Cooper will deliver the message that starts the galaxy-wide revolution, Lisa explained to General Wells, but we need 15 minutes of uninterrupted access to their communication center. The Galactic Council was meeting in continuous session as reports of rebellion reached them from across Zephyrian territory. Member species that had remained neutral for decades were now openly discussing military intervention to support the resistance movements. Ambassador Velter presented evidence that 47 different worlds were experiencing uprisings inspired by the human broadcasts. The Empire is losing control of entire star systems, he reported. Their response has been to increase executions and impose martial law, but this only creates more rebels. Ambassador Chendar from the Crystalline Consortium stood to address the assembly. My government has decided to provide material support to the resistance movements, she announced. We cannot stand by while an opportunity like this passes. The decision marked the first time in Galactic Council history that member species had agreed to actively oppose the Zephyrian Empire. Other representatives quickly followed with similar announcements, and within hours a formal alliance was established to support the growing rebellion. Captain Ryan Brooks and his assault team reached the Zephyrian command ship as the sun set over the devastated city. The massive vessel had landed in the middle of the National Mall, crushing the Washington Monument beneath its weight. Purple energy shields surrounded the ship, but the defected aliens knew exactly where the weak points were located. Shield generators cycle every 30 seconds, Kethvar explained as they approached the ship. We have small window to penetrate outer defenses. The assault began at exactly midnight when resistance forces across the globe launched coordinated attacks on major Zephyrian positions. The diversionary operations drew Imperial reinforcements away from the capital, while Ryan's team slipped through the command ship's defenses. Inside the alien vessel, the corridors were filled with the sounds of fighting as Imperial loyalists battled defected crews. Ryan's mixed force of humans and aliens moved through the chaos toward the communication center, guided by Kethvar and other defectors who knew the ship's layout. Communication center is 3 levels up, Kethvar reported as they climbed through maintenance shafts to avoid patrols. Heavy security, but most guards are conscripts. They may join us when they see defectors in our group. Professor Cooper waited in his hidden broadcast station in Ohio, ready to deliver the message that would reach every enslaved world in the Zephyrian Empire. His words would be simple but powerful, carrying the promise that freedom was possible and rebellion could succeed. The fate of countless civilizations across the galaxy now depended on a philosophy professor, a small assault team, and the revolutionary idea that all intelligent beings deserved the right to choose their own destiny. Captain Ryan Brooks and his assault team fought their way through the Zephyrian command ship as explosions echoed through the metal corridors. The defected alien soldiers in his group had been right about the conscripted guards. When they saw Kethvar and other rebels wearing white armbands, Many Imperial soldiers simply stepped aside or joined the advancing force. "Communication center is just ahead," Kethvar whispered as they crouched behind a damaged bulkhead. "But Emperor's personal guard unit is defending it. These soldiers are true believers, not conscripts." Ryan checked his shield-disrupting weapon and looked at the mixture of humans and aliens that made up his strike force. 3 months ago, he never could have imagined fighting alongside creatures that had once been his enemies. Now these defected soldiers were risking their lives to help free their own people from tyranny. The final battle for the communication center was fierce but brief. Ryan's team used their knowledge of Zephyrian shield frequencies to devastating effect, while the defected aliens provided tactical advice about Imperial combat doctrine. Within 20 minutes they had secured the facility, and Dr. Lisa Martinez was connecting her broadcast equipment to the alien network. "Professor Cooper, this is Dr. Martinez." Lisa spoke into her radio transmitter. "We have control of their communication system. You are cleared to begin the galaxy-wide broadcast." In his hidden station in the ruins of Ohio, Professor Alan Cooper took a deep breath and began speaking the words that would change the course of galactic history. His message was simple but carried the power to inspire billions of enslaved beings across hundreds of worlds. "To all who can hear this transmission," Alan began, "you are not alone in your struggle for freedom. Every intelligent being has the right to choose their own path and determine their own destiny. The Zephyrian Empire tells you that resistance is hopeless, but we have proven that courage and unity can overcome any oppression." The broadcast reached every corner of the Zephyrian Empire simultaneously. On mining worlds where alien slaves worked in terrible conditions, the message sparked immediate uprisings. On military bases across the galaxy, conscripted soldiers laid down their weapons and refused to fight. Even on the Imperial capital world, civilians began demonstrating in the streets for the first time in centuries. The Zephyrian Emperor himself arrived at Earth within hours of the broadcast, with the largest fleet in Imperial history. Emperor Zekthul was a massive creature even by Zephyrian standards, standing 12 feet tall and covered in armor that had been forged from the metals of conquered worlds. He commanded his flagship from a throne made from the bones of enemy leaders. "Destroy the human homeworld completely." The Emperor ordered his fleet commanders, "Leave nothing alive. Make an example that will end these rebellions forever." But when the Imperial fleet moved to attack Earth, they discovered that half their ships were no longer following orders. Captain Ryan Brooks watched from the communication center as Zephyrian vessels turned their weapons on each other in the space above the planet. The revolution had reached even the Emperor's elite forces. General Patricia Wells coordinated the final phase of Earth's defense from her command bunker. The shield-disrupting weapons were now being mass-produced in hidden factories around the globe, and every resistance cell had access to defected alien soldiers who understood Imperial technology. "All units, this is General Wells." She broadcast to human and alien forces worldwide. "The Emperor has arrived with reinforcements, but our allies in his own fleet are already engaging them. This is our moment to end this war permanently." Kate Sullivan led the largest coordinated uprising in human history as resistance cells across 6 continents launched simultaneous attacks on remaining Imperial positions. Her forces included humans from every walk of life fighting alongside aliens from dozens of different species who had all suffered under Zephyrian rule. The battle in Earth's orbit became a symbol of the galaxy-wide revolution as ships that had served the Empire for decades turned against their former masters. Kethavar piloted a captured Imperial fighter alongside human pilots, targeting the command ships that still followed the Emperor's orders. "This is for my people on Altheus Prime," Kethvar said over the radio as he destroyed a Zephyrian cruiser, "and for every world that will never be enslaved again." Dr. Martinez discovered that the Emperor's flagship was attempting to shut down the communication network to stop Professor Cooper's broadcasts from reaching other parts of the Empire. She worked frantically to maintain the connection, while Ryan's soldiers defended the communication center against waves of loyal Imperial guards. "Professor Cooper, you need to keep talking," Lisa called into her radio. "Every word you speak is inspiring more rebellions across the galaxy." Alan continued his philosophical broadcasts, even as explosions rocked the command ship around him. He spoke about the courage required to stand up to tyranny, the importance of choosing hope over despair, and the universal desire for freedom that connected all intelligent life. The turning point came when Emperor Zekthul's own personal guard began questioning their loyalty. These elite soldiers had been raised from birth to serve the Empire without question, but Alan's words about individual worth and the right to choose had reached even them. When the Emperor ordered the destruction of a ship full of defectors, his guard commander refused the command. "These soldiers serve the Empire faithfully," the guard said. "They do not deserve death for seeking freedom." The Emperor's rage at this defiance led to a confrontation with his own troops aboard the flagship. The creature that had ruled through fear and absolute obedience discovered that ideas were more powerful than any weapon he possessed. Captain Ryan Brooks received word that the Emperor's flagship was requesting permission to surrender. The most powerful military force in galactic history was defeated not by superior firepower but by the simple concept that every being deserved the right to be free. Professor Cooper delivered his final broadcast as news of victory reached Earth. "Today we have proven that no empire built on oppression can stand forever," he said. "The galaxy is free because ordinary people chose to be extraordinary when freedom was threatened." The Galactic Council formally recognized Earth as a member species and established new protocols for supporting resistance movements against tyrannical governments. Ambassador Veltar addressed the assembly one final time as reports of successful rebellions arrived from across the former Zephyrian territory. "We thought we were watching another conquest," Veltar said to the assembled representatives. "Instead, we witnessed the birth of a new era. Humanity did not just save themselves. They saved us all by proving that freedom is not just a privilege for the strong, but a right worth defending at any cost." The war was over, but the revolution continued as liberated worlds worked together to build a new galactic civilization based on the principles that Professor Cooper had broadcast across the stars. Freedom had become contagious, and no force in the universe could stop its spread.